Jamie Driscoll, hello. How's it going?
Hello, not so bad, Ollie. Nice to be on.
Yes, glad to have you on. Um, I was thinking about how to introduce you for this conversation because up until, well, what, 24 hours ago, it would have been the Labour mayor. So maybe I'll just give you the floor and let you sort of describe who you are now and why that's changed in the recent days.
Well, I'm still Jamie Driscoll. That hasn't changed. And I'm still the north of Tyne Metro Mayor. So that's one of these Metro Mayors like Andy Burnham or Steve Khan, except for Newcastle and the wider region, including North Tyneside and Northumberland, all the way up to Scotland. And my role is to create jobs, to help people get the jobs by giving them skills training, to help direct the regional economy. And up until yesterday, I was a member of the Labour Party. A few weeks ago, the Labour Party blocked me from running for the job I do and the wider regional job. So for the past 4 years, I've been negotiating a stronger devolution deal. I've had to work cross-party to do that. And people want their politicians to work together and put differences aside and the good of the public, of course to do. And I've landed the best funded devolution deal anywhere in England. And I've created 15 years worth of jobs in 4 years. I've increased the number of training places by 50% for the budget. And you would think that that would convince the Labour Party that I'm a good candidate who does good work. But the party bosses in London denied local members the choice to vote for me in that Labour selection. And there's been outrage. Half of the constituency parties refused to nominate. Others, there was walkouts. There was people threatened with disciplinary action for even mentioning my name in meetings. I mean, how authoritarian is that? And trade union leaders and people from other parties and business leaders have all said, look, Jamie, we think you should run. You've got the experience. You're a good independent voice anyway, in the sense that you're not directed by party HQ. You do what's right for the North East. And they convinced me. I said, well, okay, it's going to need money if I'm going to go up against a big party machine. So I put out a fundraiser yesterday, a crowdfunder, saying if I can raise 25,000 by the end of August, I'll do it. And I think as it stands, less than 24 hours later, we're on 78,000. So it seems the people have spoken. In the words of Elton John, I'm still standing.
Still standing. Okay. And could you give us the why? Why has this happened? Why did Labour deselect you, or I guess bar you from selection?
Yeah, well, it is that. I mean, the local members are outraged. Even the ones who might not necessarily agree with me are outraged. They've been denied their choice of candidates. One thing unites everybody in the Labour Party, and that's injustice. So why they did it, well, who knows? I think I'm collateral damage in a sort of a factional centralising war of the party, where they want to control everything to an atom from London Labour HQ. It's certainly not anyone who's worked with me who's got any problems. Widely praised in the response to this, people have kind of said, Jamie does a good job. And it's certainly nothing to do with economic competence. Every pound I invest returns more than £3 in payroll taxes alone. So it can't be anything to do with that. So, I think they did have a favourite candidate. I think it's been enough political games gone. As a Labour mayor, I'm automatically allowed to contact party members directly. And I've been asking for them to set this up for me versus June 2020, 3 years ago. And in January this year, they finally ran out of excuses and said, you can only do that if you promise you won't run again as mayor. I mean, it's about as blatant as you can imagine. So there's been no due process, no right of appeal, and they've kind of left me with no other option. So that's where we are. But it's a good deal for the North East. We've got finally the powers to control our own transport system. And I want to bring the buses and the heavy rail and the metro and car clubs and bike hire all into one single system where you can get it on an app with free travel for under 18s. I know I can do it, so I'll feed through the numbers with my team. And that will really transform life for people in the North East.
Jamie, some Labour figures, and that's all you can describe them as usually because it's usually anonymous briefings, but some have suggested that your candidacy was blocked because you took part in an event with director Ken Loach, who was expelled from the party in 2021. Do you think there's truth to that? You put it down to factionalism in your previous answer. Do you think it has much to do with the Ken Loach thing, or do you think it is just factionalism on the face of it, and that's the start and end of it?
Well, I did speak to Ken Loach. Yeah, we did an event at the Live Theatre, part of their 50th birthday celebrations at a really good arts venue in Newcastle. Ken's last 3 films have been set in the Northeast. You know, I, Daniel Blake, Sorry You Missed You, and this new one, The Old Oak. And I don't think there's anything wrong with regional mayor, speaking of a filmmaker who makes films in his region. In fact, people would expect me to do that. But there's a little bit of a double standard here, because Keir Starmer was in a Ken Loach film, Like Libel, and he used a clip of that in his 2020 Labour leadership election video. Ed Miliband, just a couple of years ago, invited Ken Loach onto his Cheerful podcast and spoke to him about, guess what, films. What else are you going to speak to Ken Loach about? So, you know, this is a double standard. So if I've got to go on that basis, he has got to remove himself from elected office too.
Okay, so let's interrogate the factionalism at play here then. Who does it benefit? So whose benefit is it to pursue the left and the sort of, well, yeah, the left wing of the Labour Party in this way? Does it benefit anyone?
I'm not sure it benefits the public, certainly. I'm not sure it benefits the Labour Party in particular. I think in politics, not just in the Labour Party, you need a plurality of voices. In any ecosystem, you need diversity. And when everybody starts saying and thinking the same things, that's called groupthink. And it usually leads to disaster. We know that from any number of historical examples. But I'm not sure that necessarily that I would characterise this particular left. Now, my politics are really simple. I believe Britain should be running the interests of the people who do the work and those who are unable to work. I've retired from work. And you're talking to the people in the Northeast, and 90% of them will agree with that. So I don't think that's particularly left-wing. If you go to Scandinavia, mainland Europe, everyone will say, well, yeah, there's differences about how you do it. There's differences of methods. I get that. But the basic idea that we shouldn't be letting children be in poverty by having a 2-child cap on benefits, I mean, that vast majority of the public believe that. And if we think about something like our water industry, which is owned by foreign billionaires, certainly in my part of the world, who take out hundreds of millions a year in profits. And then we've got raw sewage being pumped into our rivers and the beaches where our kids play. Then why wouldn't we have that money reinvested back in? So, you know, is that left-wing? Or I think it's common sense, but I don't know. There's certainly some people taking very big donations from very rich donors.
It sounds incredibly simple when you put it like that, and perhaps that's because it is, Jamie. I just want to put to you what the Labour Party has said about this and give you the opportunity to respond. A Labour Party spokesperson yesterday said of the situation, quote, "With Keir Starmer as leader, the Labour Party is a changed party, relentlessly focused on delivering for working people, and we make no apologies that Labour candidates are held to the highest standard." End quote. What do you make of that statement? I guess it's probably the last few words there that are probably the triggering ones.
It's interesting, isn't it? So I won the election in 2019. Through a pandemic, from a standing start, there had no organisation when I walked through the door. I've created over 5,000 jobs, which is 15 years worth of against the central government target. Increased the number of enrolments for people to learn welding and chef skills, things like that, from 22,000 a year to 33,000 a year on the same budget. When does anyone ever get a 50% increase in value for money for the taxpayer? I've got a child poverty prevention program running in schools. We've invested in a Green New Deal. We have direct power to communities to rewild back lanes, to fund beach wheelchairs on the beach. So many communities are now empowered and funded by us to do this. So what higher standard would you want? Well, you might say, all right, if we're going to jump the shark here, you've got to renegotiate the devolution deal and get the best funded deal in England that anyone ever has. And I'll say, yeah, I've done that as well. What more could I possibly have done to be a candidate of a high standard? So that is just blown out of the water.
Got you. On a personal note, you announced that you're resigning. You know, you're going to run as an independent. You're a Labour man. It must have been difficult. It must have been a difficult decision to take.
It is. It's very, very hurtful when you get people saying you can't continue to do the job you've done for the role you've created, and then start briefing out essentially lies and smears about them. You know, it's politics. You know, you've got to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. And I'm a big lad, and I look after myself. But yeah, I joined the Labour Party in 1985. My brother's not a member; he's just resigned. But until yesterday. My brother was a member, my mum was a member, wife's a member. My 2 teenage sons are members of the Labour Party. And I've got a lot of good friends of the Labour Party. And I'm not asking anyone to leave the Labour Party. You know, there are some good candidates there, some good, really good councillors doing good work, some fantastic mayors, some good MPs. You know, I'm a big fan of what the Welsh government is doing. So, yeah, you know what? What I really want is for, you know what, the best thing is if Keir Starmer just did what he said he was going to do in 2020.
Yeah, because in your resignation letter, you were pretty critical of him and his U-turns. I mean, could you just talk a little bit more about your criticisms of him?
Well, the funny thing is I interviewed Keir in 2020 as part of the leadership election. I interviewed all 3 candidates, published the videos. Very fair, very open. And he said to my face, you have to inspire people to get unity. You can't discipline people to unity. And he's broken that promise about me. But then, you know, he said, no, absolutely, we need our utilities public ownership for similar reasons I've outlined. He said, yeah, we will reverse the 2-child benefit cap because, you know what, keeping people in poverty is outrageously expensive. It doesn't even make economic sense. He said he would abolish tuition fees. He said he would invest in a Green New Deal. And there's nothing serious climate emergency. It's going to crash the world economy if we don't deal with it and cause untold amount of suffering. And it's hard to think of something he hasn't reversed. And this is not about economic competence. I reject that idea because just recently, he and the front bench went to speak to Google. 3 days later, Labour announced that they're going to reverse the tax on tech giants, costing us £3 billion. Where's the votes in that? Nobody likes tech billionaires. Even tech billionaires hate other tech billionaires, you know. So why away £3 billion to these people? That's nothing to do with economic competence.
I guess my my final question for you is what you think the consequences of not just you being, well, effectively forced out, but more broadly, the factionalism that we've discussed. What does the Labour Party risk losing? What damage does that risk causing to not only the party itself, but also to the country?
I think that's the right question there, Ollie. The Tories, I think we absolutely need to replace that government beyond doubt. 13 years of austerity has caused untold damage and human suffering. It's also incredibly expensive to fix. Once people's life expectancy is falling, they have serious health conditions, kids have had a bad education, and that has generations-long impact. So yes, let's get rid of the Tories. All for electability. You know, I even wear a suit and tie when I go on the telly. And I'm a naturally scruffy person.
I don't.
So yeah, I'm all for that. But there's a lot of people, there's millions of people in this country now saying, who speaks for me? Where's the real choice? And that's worrying, because when that happens in politics, when you create a vacuum, something fills it, and it's going to be right-wing populist. And that is a bad place to be when you've got economic decline, when you've got a climate emergency, when you see billions of people are going to be displaced worldwide. We need a sensible plan that is actually going to fix things and give people a bit of hope.
Joey Driscoll, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to me. I appreciate it. I suspect we'll be speaking again.
Cheers, Ollie.